Hey there folks, and it's Brian with Foxfire Armory again, and we have got a lot of content to get through today and very little time to do it. So without further ado, let's get into today's talking points. Alright, and so for the big one today, Elon Musk purchases Twitter. Now this is, for those of you who aren't on Twitter, don't really care about Twitter, this is huge news for the First Amendment and free speech. At least that's what we're assuming, because Elon Musk has been a huge proponent of absolute free speech as it was intended in the First Amendment. So basically, Elon Musk put it out there, he's going to buy Twitter for $54.20 a share, and for those of you who don't kind of get that figure, that is $54.20. Other words, 5,420. Now, Elon Musk is a huge proponent of marijuana and recreational marijuana, so if you caught that joke there, great. If not, oh well. It was just one to kind of troll the Twitter board, I'm assuming. The fact remains, though, that Twitter has become kind of like a public forum. You know, it's become basically the town square, and that's what people have been hoping it would return to, right? People aren't getting banned because someone doesn't like their opinion, getting banned because they have a different political view, right? And that's essentially what we've been seeing on Twitter and other platforms for quite some time. So the fact that Elon Musk is open to basically free speech, free thought, and basically letting anyone kind of come on the platform and, I'm assuming within reason, be open dialogue no matter what the content is. So that is huge in the First Amendment space. So keep an eye out as things progress with that, and obviously I will bring any news updates to you as I hear them. So the second thing we're going to get into is basically what's going on in Russia right now, and I don't really want to harken on this too much because it's an ongoing conflict, and Twitter really just doesn't like any of us talking about Ukraine and Russia and that kind of stuff. And just for saying Ukraine, it's very likely that they could choose to not monetize this video. But I'm going to bring you guys the content anyway because that's not the point of this channel. The point of this channel is to bring you guys information as it's relevant to the prepping space and self-reliance space. So Russia basically, through emissaries and other public-facing figures, have essentially said, prepare for nuclear war. Now, do I personally believe that Russia is going to start launching nukes willy-nilly and firing them off at the United States and the UK, whomever else? I really highly doubt it. I mean, that's essentially mutually assured destruction at that point. But the threat of smaller nuclear attacks, say Russia attacking Ukraine or Russia attacking some other strategic location, is a very likely scenario. Now, whether they actually would use nukes or just more destructive bombs, it's really to be seen, but they are going under the guise of nuclear, and that's what they're putting out to the media right now. So keep that in mind. Ukraine, Russia, they're huge exporters for fertilizer, feed, all sorts of things. Ukraine being the largest producer of sunflowers in the world. That one alone is things like vegetable oil and any sort of oil that uses a seed oil, specifically sunflower seed oil. Those are going to be shortages. Prices are going to go up on that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind when you're shopping and putting your preps together, that things like steel and any other commodities that are coming out of Russia and Ukraine, or realistically anywhere in that region, expect things to be delayed, expect things to go up in price, and just expect, potentially to not see those goods for a while on the shelves. So that'll lead us into what is currently happening again with the shipping industry and the shortages that are currently happening. There are 2,000 ships off various coasts. You've got China, LA, all the other ports. 2,000 ships that are, again, just sitting there. They can't offload, they can't load. it's just, they're dead in the water, right? So they're just sitting there off the coast waiting to either load or be loaded, or unloaded, excuse me. And that, again, is just putting further strain on the already crippled supply chain that we currently have. So I don't really know what else to say about that besides things are going to keep just kind of progressing with that. And I have a feeling they're going to get worse, and it is what it is at this point. We're going to have to weather the storm and hope for the best, right? Alrighty, so the next thing that we're going to get into here is something that a bunch of other channels have already kind of touched base on a little bit. So I'm just going to go through it very shortly and really not go super into depth, because Angry Prepper and Magic Prepper have done a pretty good job of already going through that. I just kind of want to give you my take on things, and that is what has been happening with the food processing plants. So on one hand, we have plants that are just going up in flames. On the other hand, we've now had 3 different plants that essentially have had either planes crash into them or have had other essentially disasters that have happened to them. So one almost got hit by a plane. One did get hit by a plane. The one that didn't get hit by the plane destroyed a whole section, and I can't remember if it was an administrative wing or if it was like a shipping office, but that whole section of that building was destroyed. The one that got hit by the plane, the whole building was destroyed. Now, I think the total now that I've seen is 16 different food processing plants. Now, this is not just things like beef or chicken or corn. This is everything. So one was I think like a Quaker Oats, like a Kellogg's factory, and who makes cereals and stuff. So that whole plant completely destroyed, wiped out everything that they had in there. Probably, if I had to guess, millions, if not billions worth of equipment and product. So this is not going to affect just one thing here, one thing there. This is going to affect the entire food sector, right? So your grocery stores are going to be hurt. Your suppliers, distributors are all going to be hurt by this. And that is just going to further hurt the supply chain issues that we're seeing in the grocery stores, right? So as we've talked previously, the grocery stores have had issues with filling the shelves, and they go through cycles of this thing is not filled on the shelf to then that thing's not filled on the shelf, right? So your dry goods might be there one day and your frozen section is completely empty. Then the next week, it's the freezer section is there, but but another thing is empty, right? And we're seeing it with produce, we're seeing it with cereal goods, canned goods, dry goods, frozen goods, pretty much everything across the board. There's very few things that haven't been hit with these disruptions. And I feel like these are just going to continue to get worse. So the one thing that I can say to you is 100% get out there, start planting your own garden, right? Anything you can do to help alleviate some of those issues and take some of that burden off purchasing power and starting to grow the food yourself. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? Grow your potatoes, grow your onions, cycle them out, because contrary to popular belief, you can grow things out of season. Garlic, potatoes, onions, carrots, you can grow all that stuff out of season if you know what you're doing and you're willing to put in a little bit more effort, right? So my family's doing it. I highly suggest if you're not doing it, that your family does it, and really just start working on becoming more self-reliant, because as we're seeing out there, folks, it is a disaster, and I don't predict it's going to get better. I apologize, my throat's a little sore. It's partly why videos haven't been out. If you stuck around this long, I've been a little sick, a little under the weather. Lymph nodes have been a little swollen. Kind of hurts a little bit to talk here, so I'm going to try to keep getting through this. Hopefully get over whatever this is. I've had a pinched nerve in the shoulder too. I guess that's what happens when you have kids and you're getting older and you're messing around still trying to think you're 20 years old, right? But in any case, the last thing that I want to touch base on today is basically what is kind of happening logistically, global-wise. We have China basically moving military around strategically. They've now basically made 3 little man-made islands. They call them the sinking islands. They have runways for jets. They've moved ships and other military pieces around throughout the South China Sea and around Taiwan. And it's realistically just a matter of time before that conflict kicks off. And we currently have Russia and Ukraine, which are going on. And I just feel like the more that this stuff continues, the more that these conflicts keeps, spurring up and continuing, as in the Russia-Ukraine situation, things are definitely going to get worse. It's just, things are going to get worse before they get better, right? This is just the way things work. And I, for one, am going to pray that we don't hit a World War III situation, but we have a failing infrastructure. That's roadways, railways, pretty much everything you can possibly think about. Our bridges are failing in the United States. And it's just a testament to the lack of accountability that we have with our government. And, we pay taxes, and those are supposed to go to these things. And unfortunately, misappropriated funds consistently. This is nothing new. Our government has been misappropriating funds for probably since before I was even born, realistically. And just as we keep moving forward and the economy is faltering, the yen is basically crashing, the euro is essentially crashing, the US dollar is slowly on its way out, with the Chinese yuan picking up and the Russian ruble picking up. We're getting to a point to where things are going to kind of flatten out. And basically what that means here in the US specifically, for those of you in the US and probably North America, realistically, things are going to get tight. The dollar is going to lose value, and what happens when the US dollar loses value, currencies like the Canadian dollar and other currencies that are kind of tied to the US petrodollar are going to falter. It's just the way things work. It's unfortunately the way our fiat currencies have been built. It's the way the system is, right? We are not backed by gold anymore. We're off the gold standard. That's where the term petrodollar comes in, because we're basically based around petroleum. And with the huge push for all the green energy that you're seeing from the Biden administration and from state and local governments, the amount of resources and materials that are needed to purchase that stuff to make things like windmills. I mean, for people who don't understand, a typical big windmill that you're going to see out there, like the ones that are in the Gulf, it's about 2 tons worth of rare earth minerals to produce that. It requires oil still to build those. And they really don't pay for themselves as much as people think they would, right? The amount of energy created from one of those really would not be sufficient enough to power most of what the US alone consumes, right? So even with all the solar and wind that we currently have today, if we were to completely shut off coal and nuclear, we wouldn't be able to sustain for more than maybe 30 hours, realistically, on just wholly green energy. So it'll be interesting to see what the Biden administration does with ramping up or rejuvenating old nuclear plants. I've always been a big proponent of nuclear. It's fairly green. It really doesn't produce as much waste as people believe it does. A lot of that was propaganda back in the 80s by Gore to basically push green technologies that he had his hand in, which made him millions of dollars and basically killed one of the highest yield producing energy things, which is nuclear power plants. So stay safe out there, guys. If you have made it this far, please, please, please like, share, subscribe, and let's just keep doing what we're doing. Let's get the content out there. Let's get the information out there. And YouTube is really suppressing not only my channel, but everybody else's prepping related channels. I mean, even the huge channels like Canadian Prepper and City Prepping. I've noticed their view counts and everything are just, they're going down a lot. And it's happened just recently within like the last month. So every little bit helps. Until next time, thank you guys so much for watching. This is Brian with Foxfire Armory.